FirstCoast.tv. I'm here at Ryan Scientific. We're in Green Cove Springs. So we are in Clay County, but right on the border. It only took me 20-some minutes to get here from St. Augustine. And I'm with
Dale Ryan and my wife Nissa.
Nissa.
Yeah.
They're working on this great project to help homeless. And I guess your first stage will be Hawaii. Am I correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this project. Why the project?
Well, we got interested in tiny houses, and going back to 2004, we built field hospitals for Pakistan when they had the big earthquake over there.
Yes.
And we flew up to find out what they really needed, and they needed hard shell field hospitals. We got there shortly after the earthquake, and they'd already done 100,000 surgical procedures. Cuba sent 2,500 doctors up there, but they had no hard shell.
Right.
They had to do it in tents. They actually did a lot of the procedures in a snowbank.
Wow.
And so we went back to Thailand in our factory and hurriedly designed a hard shell field hospital and manufactured them and sent them to Muzaffarabad up in the Pashtun Mountains.
Okay.
And then while we were with that project in Muzaffarabad, the tsunami hit Thailand, and so we went back to Thailand to see what we could do. It's my wife's home country, so to see what we could do there. It is a beautiful country, and we went down to Khao Lak, which was it's the one you see on the TV clips where the water is rushing through the hotels. It was the worst hit of all the small villages, and we went back there.
So that turned out to be like your workshop in a way of design and keep experimenting and trying new things.
Exactly. It got us focused on this particular category of tiny houses, which later turned into be a tiny house movement. But
now I saw the one you're working on, which our viewers will take a look at. Why that form? Why that shape?
Okay, that's easily explained, because if you're going to produce a true home for a homeless person or a refugee or someone that's
a disaster victim,
anyone that's sorely in need, you got to give them food, clothing, and shelter. So we went back in time to the 60s, and there was a movement for some time on A-frame houses.
Yes.
And the A-frame house has proven to be the least expensive way that you could house a family. And so, but the problem with an A-frame house is that it's too narrow inside.
Yes.
And shoulder room is affected. That's why they didn't really catch on as I sort of expected they would back then. But while in Thailand, we became very proficient at making curved panels. So we found that with these curved panels, you can maintain the room inside.
Smart.
But still end up with the economies of an A-frame.
Okay.
And so that's worked out exceedingly well for us.
Okay.
And so in the studies that we did, we found that probably the biggest mistake being made, and probably out of necessity, is that these other type of shelters, whether it's the tiny houses or another type, the one IKEA makes, they're too expensive. If you start talking 20,000, right now it's 20,000, more like 25,000 to 200,000 is the range.
Right.
And that's a constraint for homeless.
Right.
If you really want the right thing, it's something that's going to be priced around $2,500, $3,000, because then these funds can buy enough of them to actually make a community and be meaningful, but you're still giving them a true home. You're not shorting it anywhere.
Now, would you say you're like that home we saw? Are you think you're still in a prototype sort of level, or do you think you have the final product the way you'd like it to be?
We're pretty sure we have the final product, and we're focusing on the state of Hawaii.
Okay.
There's right now we've identified over 80 cities that want to establish a homeless community.
Wow.
University of California, Berkeley did an experiment where they took 25 homeless off the street and gave each one of them a tiny house.
Uh-huh.
And they recorded, but they did it in an interesting way. They gave them a tiny house and they said, we're not going to police it. There's going to be no development,
Right.
housing development police or anything. You guys are on your own, 25 of them. You have to elect your own mini housing commission, and you have to govern yourself. And they were astounded to find out that the vast majority of the 25 turned their lives around.
Wow.
They needed the dignity
Yes.
that house gave them.
That's the magic word, dignity.
Dignity, and they had mail delivered to them, and they were placed in as normal a situation
Right.
as we could.
Yeah. Become members of the community again.
Their own little community, that answerable to one another.
Awesome.
But University of California followed it for another year, and that's when they made the most astounding discovery, and that is they used 90% less free services than they did when they were on the street.
Wow.
It saved the area about $15 million. So that created an explosion coast to coast.
Right.
And now we have at least 80 cities that have flown representatives out there to see how they did what they did and to see if the success could be duplicated.
Right.
And so we're carrying it one step further, saying instead of 25,000, if you can get just as nice or nicer a home for 2,500, now they can purchase enough of them to make a meaningful impact.
Right.
Because all these cities have 1,000 or more. Hawaii has 18,700 homeless.
I know. I lived on Maui, and I was surprised that there was a homeless problem.
Big problem.
And Oahu, of course,
Yes.
being the most populated,
Yeah.
has even a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Here's a question. What's the area inside of one of these homes?
It has, this one that we have developed out here has 160 square feet.
Okay.
In other companies' attempts to make a homeless shelter with a reasonable price, right now there's a 60 square foot, which is not even 2 sheets of plywood.
Right.
60 square foot on the market for $11,000.
Right, right.
So that is obviously not the answer.
Now, would these homes have a toilet inside, or would they have water inside, or can that be added or not added?
It can be added. They're looking right now at perhaps interim housing and upscale categories.
Okay.
So if people did really well in their interim home, they could move to one with all the amenities inside.
All right.
And then maybe even a third step further where they have a home and land of their own.
Right.
So those are the 3-step program. What we're developing has a bed, full-size bed inside, desk and chair, and one light arrangement inside and one outlet, one electric outlet.
Okay.
That's what Hawaii wants.
Okay.
Because they have to move 4,700 people immediately.
Oh, wow.
Because they're sleeping on Waikiki Beach.
Yes.
And
yes.
using the sidewalk in not a good way.
That's Oahu's problem.
Yes. And so the hotels have got together in Hawaii and have threatened to sue the state of Hawaii and the city of Honolulu unless they do something about the housing, the homeless housing
It's
problem.
sad that it has to come to that.
It had to come to that. Yeah,
It's so sad that people are not proactive before something like that comes like that.
Well, they have been for probably 25 years or more, but they've never developed anything that works.
Right.
You know, they have shelters where all these people line up at 6:30 at night to get a bed, and all sleep, maybe 200 people in one room, which is not very not much dignity in that.
Right.
And then they kick them out at 6 in the morning.
Right.
It will never be the answer. It's just a Band-Aid over the problem.
Exactly.
So
that
they've proven that these communities work.
Right.
And so now it's okay. The homeless communities work. How do we make this universal? How do we expand on it?
Yeah.
And I try not to use the word homeless or negative monikers if I can. our little house is called Tru-Home
Okay.
because it is. And it's not a shelter, and it's not a homeless shelter. It's not something else that has a stigma of less than.
I think George Carlin is the one who says they're really houseless because home is a concept of something spiritual and something thing.
That's
They're
right.
really houseless.
Houseless is all
and
they
they
are.
need to find that home,
Yes.
which is more than just the structure itself.
Yeah, a house is not necessarily a home.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Another question, about how much would that unit weigh, you think?
Actually, there's 14 panels in the home, and they're 34 pounds apiece. So you're probably entire structure is actually less than 1,500 pounds,
Okay.
and
Now-
they can be shipped all flat packed together.
Oh,
I said.
wow.
We've identified 80 cities that want to establish homeless communities. Well, Hawaii is in a unique situation because they have to.
Right.
They don't have. They don't
Right.
want this lawsuit.
And another advantage in Hawaii is that the weather is perfect.
Yes.
They don't have hot summers like we have here, and they
Yes.
don't have cold winters like I have here.
Yes.
So that alone
Right.
takes care of a huge problem of heating and cooling.
Right.
Because
Well, there are some interesting dynamics here too. And I like I say I don't like this term, but the homeless community, and we have to refer to them in some way. They're getting smarter and they're getting more creative about what they do. And if they're getting a lot of pressure from some city that they're in, they are somehow getting their hands on enough money for a one-way ticket to Hawaii, and they say if we're going to be homeless, it better be on Waikiki than in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's compounded problems in Hawaii because now that the homeless they're increasing by 12% a year,
Yes.
which is a pretty heavy
Yes.
number.
And that would,
Basically, they really have a lot of sympathetic people there too. So
Yes.
they're treated pretty
yes, it's a very
nicely as they possibly
spiritual.
can be.
Those islands are very spiritual.
Yeah.
Well, aloha.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
Exactly.
aloha.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've focused on that, and this is the first structure that we have on our floor that has been purpose built to help solve the homeless problem, so that the price is right, yet it's extremely well built. Most of the other offerings are not even insulated. Ours are heavily insulated with styrofoam, so it'll make a nice.
So, what do you think is the lifespan of a home like that?
Well,
The ballpark figure, I know.
100
that.
years
Oh,
with minimal.
well, I'll come back in 100 years.
There
and
you
check
go.
if
We'll
they're still
both
there.
come back and check it. With near zero or to zero maintenance, everything that's exposed to the weather outdoors on ours is either fiberglass or thermoplastic. And both of those have life expectancy well beyond 100 years.
Okay.
And so, like I say, we felt going into it that had to be one of the main rules going in on our design, is that it had to sit there for many years with no maintenance, because it probably won't be able to get maintenance like a homeowner would do over here in America. And so that was the point behind it, was no maintenance, flat pack shipping, so it could go anywhere. Very reasonable price, which is, you can't buy a lot of them if that's the price is where it should be. And so we managed to get that also. But at the same time, a true home with an appealing interior and something I wouldn't mind living. My wife and I wouldn't mind living in.
Well, yeah, I could see that. I could see a group of a cluster of those homes
Yes.
with a little communal garden.
Yep.
They grow their own vegetables. I could see this as a wonderful way for people to get back on their feet and start having a purpose and get over, get psychological help. A lot of them need that. Addiction problems. Et cetera, et cetera. I think it's awesome.
Well, that's another nice thing about a homeless community, and which, of course, at that point in time, they're no longer homeless, but a community, because then everyone is there, and they're easy to get to it. One of the difficult things with counseling or assistance or anything like that is that they're so scattered in these other cities. So,
All right. Well, I want to thank you for this interview. I think it's wonderful, and I think what you're doing is it's God's work, my friend.
I think
So God bless both of you, and thank you again.
my pleasure.